Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis, just giving you a little bit of update on OutKick, the show. We've got the show on FS1 that's airing every single Wednesday, so I hope you guys are checking it out. Trying to do early shows for the next, early in the week shows for the next 6 weeks or so, and then I'm going to have a major announcement. I have not won a major award, but soon major announcements coming, all very positive, at least if you like me. If you hate me, as is often the case, you're going to be very sad because more good things are coming. But that is in the future. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about the NCAA tournament. I want to talk to you about Iran. I want to talk to you about the TSA. I'll be on with Will Kane a little bit later from now on Fox News. And the Clay and Buck Show continues to dominate, as you will soon hear. But we begin with NCAA tournament, Sweet 16 action. Congratulations off the top to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska is one of the great fan bases in all of sports, and they have had virtually nothing to celebrate since Scott Frost and Tommy Frazier were playing college football. For those of you who do not remember when Scott Frost and Tommy Frazier were playing college football, it was back in the late 90s. A spectacular time in this country. And if I had come on and I had told you, hey, basically Nebraska football is not going to matter for 30 years, everyone in the state of Nebraska would have called me a moron. 90% of college football fans would have also called me a moron. And I would have been 100% right. Because Nebraska has not mattered really since Tommy Frazier and Scott Frost, and Tom Osborne was the head coach, and Nebraska was winning multiple championships. They haven't really mattered in about 30 years. Worse than that, they've never won an NCAA tournament game prior to this year. But the Cornhuskers got it done. First round victory with ease, and then what I think was one of the best games in the entirety of the first 4 days of the NCAA tournament. Win over Vanderbilt. I lost a lot of money on that game. I still think that Vanderbilt should have won. Duke Miles went, I think, 1 for 9 from 3. Guy usually can't miss. He had a ton of wide open looks. He missed them. Nebraska got a couple of key rebounds late and got the follows, and then managed to get a late running score. I believe we have a still shot of this. This was how close Vanderbilt came to winning on an epic walk-off three-pointer. Look at this for a moment. Look at how close that shot is. That is March Madness distilled. Tyler Tanner running down the court, running down the court, heaves a shot at the last possible moment, and it barely does not go in. Tyler Tanner's an incredible player, by the way. Should be a first-round draft pick. Vanderbilt Commodore point guard. That's how close we came to Vanderbilt advancing. Instead, Nebraska won, and they go to their first ever Sweet 16, where they will be playing Iowa. Huge late three-pointer from Iowa to shock the defending national champion Florida Gators, who lost as a double-digit virtual home favorite, virtual home crowd. They got the win. Iowa did on a last-second three-pointer from a Spanish dude, if I'm not mistaken. And as a result, Nebraska and Iowa, which is a rivalry that most of the country doesn't even know about, but these two schools hate each other, will now be playing for a trip to the Elite Eight. One of those teams is going to be in the Elite Eight. Iowa had not been, I believe I'm correct about this, to the Sweet 16 since 1999. And meanwhile, St. John's, last-second buzzer beater to defeat Kansas. St. John's and Rick Pitino into the Sweet 16, as I predicted would be the case. They were underseeded as a 5 seed. Rick Pitino now with a lot of time to get ready for Duke, and I think they have a good chance to pull off the upset there. St. John's on in to the Sweet 16 as well for the first time since 1999. Mike Jarvis, I believe, was the coach then. Ron Artest was their star player. So St. John's to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. Iowa to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. And we have the first time ever for Nebraska to win a game or certainly to go to the Sweet 16. 3 teams. I believe I'm correct in all these stats. I'm doing them off the top of my head because I do a lot of reading. Tennessee, Alabama, and Houston have both, all 3 of those schools, have been to 4 Sweet 16s or better. That is the only 3 teams in America to go to 4 straight Sweet 16s, Tennessee, Alabama, and Houston. Houston advanced as well to the national title game last year. Alabama has been to the Final Four. Tennessee has still never been to the Final Four. But I want to take a minute here and talk about Rick Barnes. I think Rick Barnes is probably the most underrated coach in all of college basketball, maybe in college basketball history. Now, he has not won a national championship. I believe he's only been to 1 Final Four with Texas. So the NCAA tournament results have not always gone his way. But I think what he has done at Tennessee has cemented his status as one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. He's already got 800-plus wins, whatever the crazy number is. But to go to 4 straight Sweet 16s, to me, and I've been arguing this for basically my entire career in media, if you go to the Sweet 16, it was a great season, okay? I understand people out there, you have higher expectations than the Sweet 16. You want to win a national championship. But if you are one of the final 16 teams, to me, it's like making the college football playoff. You've had a great season. You can see the championship from the Sweet 16. You are in the final little quad there. One of your 4 teams in your quadrant's going to go to the Final Four. Sweet 16 is a great year. Tell me that I'm going to be in the Sweet 16 every year. I sign up for it. I roll the dice. I take my chances on whether or not I'm going to eventually win a national championship. As a kid, growing up as a big University of Tennessee fan, I got to tell you guys, I dreamed of my team ever making the Sweet 16. In my life as a fan, Tennessee didn't even make the Sweet 16 until the year 2000. And then when they finally made it, they didn't make it again for a long period of time either. I think as a fan of most teams, if your team makes a Sweet 16, it's a great year. But let me hit you with this. Tennessee made the Sweet 16 in 1967, just as an example. I think Tennessee is a top 10 basketball program now. I really do. Tennessee made the Sweet 16 in 1967 and 1981. Then they did not make the Sweet 16 again until 2000. So I was born in 79. I watched every season of Tennessee basketball, rooting like crazy for them to make the Sweet 16. Heck, they didn't even make the tournament very often. They made the tournament in 89, 98, 99. They finally started to make the tournament about time I got to be a college-age kid. But listen to this. Sweet 16 made it in 2000 with Jerry Green, if I remember correctly. Then the Bruce Pearl era started. Sweet 16s in 2007, 2008, 2010. Then I believe I am correct, Konzo Martin made the Sweet 16 in 2014. And then that's how good of a job Tennessee is, that Konzo Martin, who's never won anything anywhere else, made the Sweet 16 with Tennessee. Then 2019, and now 23, 24, 25, and 26. Prior to 2000, Tennessee had made 2 Sweet 16s ever. Rick Barnes has now made 4 straight Sweet 16s. Now, also, 2 out of the 3 Elite 8 performances. I don't know that this team has the horses to make a run to the Final Four, but Rick Barnes, what an incredible career. I would love to see him take Tennessee to the Final Four to be kind of the final crystallization of his incredible coaching career. I looked up this stat because I was interested. I will say the number 1 overall right now, highest rated opening Thursday in the history of the NCAA tournament just happened. The number 1. Never have more people watch the NCAA tournament than on the Thursday opening day of the NCAA tournament. I think we have that graphic up. People love basketball. And you're going to say, Clay, you keep hammering this home, but I'm going to keep hammering it home. The NBA is setting multi-decade record low ratings, while the NCAA tournament is setting all-time highs. Think about that for a moment. If you are in charge of basketball at the NBA, it would be one thing if you said, well, people just don't love this sport as much as they used to. I'll give you an example. Back in the day, horse racing, boxing, and football were the three biggest sports in America. Clay Travis, 1945, right out of World War II. I could have sat down with a cigar in my mouth, Edward R. Murrow style, and I could have said, there'll never be a time where horse racing, boxing, and baseball are not the three most beloved sports in America. Well, clearly, the most beloved sport in America is now football. I think baseball is now the second most beloved sport. We can have an argument about that, a discussion about it. But think about the NBA's collapse. That the NBA is setting multi-decade lows in ratings, while college basketball, men's and women's, is setting all-time highs. You should be thinking to yourself, boy, maybe the NBA screwed up. Maybe having social justice warrior slogans on our jerseys and on our basketball court wasn't a good idea. Maybe there are a ton of Trump voters that also love basketball. Maybe you don't alienate them. Maybe Michael Jordan was right when he said Republicans buy sneakers too. I do think that story is worth contemplating because people love basketball and the NCAA ratings, tournament ratings prove it. Now, if you wanted me to give you a negative about the NCAA tournament, it's this. I don't think that there is still an argument for Cinderellas in the NCAA tournament. I know High Point won. I know that St. Louis won in the first round. But your Cinderella now is not really a Cinderella. It's 11 seed Texas, which is a major conference team. And in fact, here is the Sweet 16 by conference. The Big Ten has 6. The SEC has 4. And by the way, the difference between the SEC having 6 and the Big Ten having 4, 2 shots, right? Because Vanderbilt could have very easily beaten Nebraska, and Florida arguably should have beaten Iowa. So the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten, 6-4 both ways, is those 2 shots, basically. But the Big Ten with 6, SEC with 4, Big 12 with 3, Big East with 2, St. John's and UConn. ACC only has 1. Basically, the NCAA tournament has become what I believe largely the college football playoff has become, the Big Ten versus the SEC Invitational. Again, 6 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, 10 of the 16 spots. You could flip it again if you change that outcome a little bit. 10 of the 16 spots go to the SEC or the Big Ten. Then you got the Big 12 and the ACC with 4, Big East with 2. I don't think we're ever going to see Cinderellas again in an NIL era. I think the money is too substantial in the power conferences. I just don't think we're going to see it anymore. But there is your breakdown of how the college basketball Sweet 16 is set. Now, we got a couple of other things that I want to hit. Can we pull up the audio? Friday, we have open phone lines. Some of you have never listened to the Clay and Buck Show before. And if you have not listened to the Clay and Buck Show before, I encourage you to go subscribe to the podcast. I encourage you to go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're soon going to have 3 hours of the radio show live. We're on Sirius XM. I believe it's channel 123, 600, 550, 575, whatever the heck the number is, AM, FM stations nationwide. And this is what a caller called in to say. And then I went on Fox News and talked about it on Friday. Linda from Green Valley, Arizona. She just called back into the program. She is a mom of 2, a grandma of 5. And while listening to the program, she said, why can't we deploy ICE to help the TSA because TSA agents are not being paid? It's a great idea. Fantastic question. This is what that call sounded like than me talking about it. You probably have noticed now, President Trump has deployed ICE to the TSA. Listen.
Clay, I think I have a solution to the TSA problem. What we need to do is we need to supplement where we're missing out on TSA agents who can't afford to work for us anymore. We need to bring in ICE agents.
Linda, I'm going to say, it's kind of a brilliant idea.
I had a caller on the show, the Clay and Buck show today, Charlie, had an interesting idea. What if President Trump announced that ICE agents were now going to be supplementing TSA agents inside of all of the airports?
All right, so Linda calls in on Friday on the radio show. I then went on the Jesse Waters show, guest hosted by Charlie Hurt, made that suggestion. And then on Saturday morning, President Trump says we're going to deploy ICE and at the airports. And then by Monday, they are there at 13 different airports. Now, President Trump was asked about this. He said he came up with the idea himself, and maybe he did. But the timing on this is certainly very, very interesting, right? Brian Stelter at CNN wrote an article, said he did a search to see if anyone prior to me had said anything about ICE being deployed to help the TSA prior to me saying it on Friday night. It did not happen. President Trump watches a lot of Fox News. So do I. Got good taste. I'm on Fox News a lot. I cited, again, Linda's suggestion. By Saturday, Trump says he's going to do it. By Monday, it's happened. Regardless of where the idea came from, this to me is a good example at Trump moving at the speed of business as opposed to moving at the speed of government. A lot of times people have good ideas. The difference between a good idea being implemented and a good idea being talked about is often seismic. Wherever you work, especially if you work in government, how often do you have meetings where everybody sits around, somebody comes up with an idea, kicks down the road, might take months, never really gets implemented. People say, well, I don't know about how I like this idea. I'm not sure how exactly this is going to work. And then it may or may not ever become a reality. Here, Trump had never tweeted about it before. Saturday, he tweets about it. By Monday, it's become reality. That is government moving at the speed of not even just business, small business, because big businesses can often be incredibly slow to act. So I give President Trump immense credit. Ultimately, this is his action in response to an idea that came to him either on his own or he saw it elsewhere. I think it is a no-brainer. I also want to give President Trump a lot of credit here. I talked about this earlier on the program, Clay and Buck, but one of the things that I care about the most, some of you can say, I don't know why you care about this, Clay. One of the things I care about the most is I'd like less people to die. I know. I hate murder more than you do. And we've got some data here that I shared from Washington, D.C., but I want to pull it up and make sure I get the absolute final, last moment, current data. In Washington, D.C., since the president put out a proclamation that he was going to bring in more support for Washington, D.C. law enforcement, the overall number of murders in Washington, D.C. has dropped from 31 at this point in time last year to 11 at this point in time this year. That's a decline of 65%. The overall number of sexual abuse has declined by 65%. Vehicle theft has declined by 55%. Theft from auto, that's stealing, I guess, from inside of an automobile, down 36%. All crime is collapsing in Washington, D.C. It's also collapsing in Memphis. And I want to make sure that I get this Memphis data correct because the president's in Memphis right now. And again, I try to share good news. Latest Memphis statistics. This is according to Margot Martin. Arrested 7,000 criminals, seized more than 1,100 illegal guns, taken more than 1,000 pounds of illicit narcotics, rescued more than 150 missing children. The overall rate of crime, this is according to Marsha Blackburn, in Memphis, down more than 43%. Vehicles, down 67%. Motor vehicle thefts, robberies, down 51%. Sexual assaults, down 38%. Homicides, down 35%. Burglaries, down 32%. Aggravated assault, down 31%. That's compared to last year. I just shared the data from Washington, D.C. Why isn't every city doing this? Why isn't every city doing exactly what's working in Washington, D.C. and exactly what is working in Memphis? This is just basic facts. Instead, this poor girl, 18-year-old college girl, some of you may have seen this, Sheridan Gorman, college student, murdered in downtown Chicago in a park by a Venezuelan illegal immigrant who had already been arrested twice before. Why are we letting this happen? Why is anyone in America okay with illegal immigrants committing crimes and being able to stay in this country? Democrats have largely shut down the TSA because they are angry that illegal immigrants are being taken out of the country, most of them violent. How in the world has one political party ended up insisting that American citizens trying to get on airplanes in Atlanta, in Houston, in New York City, in New Orleans, among others, have to stand in line for hours because they are refusing to pay TSA agents? The average TSA agent makes $40,000 a year. I don't believe congressmen or senators should get paid, nor should their staffs when they're refusing to pay TSA. I don't care what the politics are of TSA agents. They should be paid for their work. They don't get to say to the rent or the child care provider or the car payment or the credit card company, oh, I'm not getting paid right now, so I'm not going to pay you. You work, you get paid. It's a foundational bargain of American life. This is unacceptable, no matter what your politics are. But for Democrats to refuse to pay TSA agents because they are upset that too many violent illegal immigrants are being deported, I can't believe that we have ended up in a position in this country where that could be the reality. Sheridan Gorman is dead because Joe Biden decided we shouldn't have any border security. Sheridan Gorman is dead because Democrats decided that when illegal immigrants commit crimes, they shouldn't be deported. No American parent should ever get a phone call like Sheridan Gorman's family did, where their daughter is dead because of the actions of Democrats refusing to deport violent illegal immigrants. Facts matter. Data matters. Share them widely. Again, I'm going to continue to hammer this. Last year, we set a 125-year low for murders in the United States. Going all the way back to 1900, there has never been a safer time to be in America than last year. Why isn't it the case that every single person in the country knows that stat? And why isn't it the case that every single city, Chicago, LA, New York City, my home city of Nashville, why isn't every single city doing the exact same thing that Washington, D.C. and Memphis are doing right now? Why do we accept violent crime on any kind of significant level at all? We should have a tiny murder rate in this country. Do you know how we do it? Kick violent illegal immigrants out of this country and don't let them back in, and lock up all of the violent perpetrators in this country and keep them in prison. We know how to fix this country's streets and make them safe. The only thing we don't have is the will to actually do it. I don't care about being too nice to criminals. You commit a violent crime, you should be gone off the streets for most of your life, in my personal opinion. And if we did that, we would see the overall murder rate collapse, because guess what? Violent perpetrators are a tiny minority of the overall population in this country, but they produce a disproportionate share of the overall crime in this country. It doesn't take incarcerating that many violent criminals to actually make us all safer. That's being proven in Washington, D.C. It's being proven in Memphis. Why don't we prove it in every major city across the country? Seems like basic common sense to me. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP, OutKick the show will be back on Wednesday. I'll do an early show next week, but if you're out there and you're wondering, Clay, how come you're doing less OutKick shows? I am working very significantly on a major announcement, which will be coming in the near future. And if you love me, you're going to love it. And if you hate me, you're going to hate it. I can't wait. This has been OutKick the show.